Hey everybody, today we're focusing on two verbs, the verbs make and do. These verbs can be a little bit confusing for people who are learning English because they can have similar meanings sometimes. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at some guidelines, okay, not rules, just guidelines of how to use each one and some expressions that you'll want to know. That's coming up. If it's your first time on our channel, then join us by subscribing and clicking the bell notification icon so you don't miss the next videos. Now, at the end of this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the abstract and confusing uses, but first, we're going to talk about the base guidelines for each one of the two verbs. Let's start with the verb to do. To do means to perform or to complete an action, usually talking about physical activity or an action or an ability that has to do with your job. It's also used to talk about activities or actions that you do at home or at school, like chores and some other things. First, let's talk about physical activity. For example, I would say that I do exercise every week. Or maybe I did an aerobics class yesterday. I could say, I did a triathlon. Or, I did a hard workout this morning. Now, sometimes you can substitute the verb do with have. For example, I had a hard workout this morning. But do is the verb that you use if you choose to use one of those two verbs. Do is also used a lot when we're talking about our job. It's common to ask someone, for example, what they do for a living. I might say, you know, I think I do my job well. Or, she did a great job. Also, when talking about your job or your company, you could say, my company does business all around the world. Or, we could talk about certain professions, or at least what those professions do. For example, she does my hair. Or, I had my nails done at the salon. Women sometimes do their makeup before they go out. At home, we use do to talk about common chores or activities. For example, who does the cooking at your house? I do the dishes every evening. Or, when do you do laundry? Or, my family does the cleaning together on weekends. For school-related stuff, we also use the verb do. For example, my children have to do their homework before they go out to play. Or, when I'm writing my thesis, I have to do my research. Or, I love the humanities, but I hate doing math. Now let's talk a little bit about the verb to make. To make is used a lot when we're talking about preparing something or creating something. Also, manufacturing. And to make is used a lot when we talk about money, for sure, and planning things, and talking or sounds, things that have to do with talking. For example, I might say, I made $100 washing cars last summer. Or, I made a donation to my favorite charity. A really common expression in English is that someone is having trouble making ends meet. To make ends meet means that you're having trouble paying the bills. So again, paying. I might also say that I made a fortune in the stock exchange. Wouldn't that be nice? When you're talking about making a deal, for example, you're trying to sell something on eBay. You would say, make me an offer. Or if you're buying something, you might say, oh, we made a great bargain. So you can see that make is used a lot when we're talking about money, making a profit, okay? We also use make to talk about plans. So I could say, I'm making all the necessary travel arrangements. Or I'm making all the necessary arrangements. Or we made plans to go out on Tuesday. When we make a promise, we plan to keep it. See, with plan. Or when we make an apology, we don't plan to repeat the mistake. We can also say we make a decision And that's like a plan for future action. When we're talking about sounds or conversation, we might say, we made a deal, because there was a negotiation, we were talking. So we made a deal. Or when you're in the library, you shouldn't make a sound. Or please don't make noise. Also, if you're complaining about something, obviously you're talking, so you would say that someone is making a fuss about something, or they're making a big deal out of nothing. And there's also that definition that involves creating or preparing something. For example, I made a cake yesterday, or I make coffee every morning. Or maybe it's your significant other's birthday, and you go in the morning and you say, hey honey, I made you breakfast. We also use to make when we're talking about creating certain feelings in people. So, for example, when I helped him, I know I made him happy. Or, she didn't like what I said. I think I made her angry. One time that we used the verb make, and some people think it should be do, is when we say we make our bed. And it sounds like a chore, but really when you make your bed, you're preparing it so that you can use it the next night. Got it? Once you understand these guidelines, it's easier to guess when you're not really sure which verb you should use. But there's always some confusion when it comes to abstract actions or intangibles and expressions and things like that. So the only advice I can give you is to study those specific expressions so you can get a feel for the expressions, and also when a variation or a replacement word could be used inside of an expression. Now let's look at some of these abstract uses, kind of do and make in some expressions that may not fit inside of one of those guidelines. So I prepared a fun little statement for you. I want to do you a favor. I hope the example makes sense. If you throw a rock at someone's car, you are doing damage to their property. But if I yell at you, I will do more harm than good. So even if you do something foolish, don't make excuses. Just make an apology and move on. Now I want to make a suggestion. I want you to make a list of the expressions you learned, and I want you to study them. Also, watch this video a few times, because that will help. And I want you all to practice. I won't make any exceptions. Do you understand? So that's make and do. Don't forget to subscribe. Click the bell notification icon. And as always, let's practice. Hey everybody, today we're focusing. All these trucks ruining the sound at lunchtime. All right. And for things related, I love the humanities, but I hate doing math. And that one's true.